Captain Ju Park stood alone on the observation deck, her dark eyes fixed on the colossal structure taking shape beyond the reinforced glass. The Leviathan, humanity's most ambitious military project and ultimate battleship, was finally nearing completion in the massive orbital shipyard. The ship's hull gleamed under the harsh industrial lights, its surfaces a patchwork of specialized alloys and experimental materials never before combined. At over 2 kilometers long, the vessel dwarfed everything humanity had ever constructed in space. Its silhouette was unlike any conventional warship, with smooth organic curves hiding weapons systems that most of Earth's population didn't know existed. Chiwu's reflection stared back at her from the glass. The crisp blue uniform of Earth's United Defense Force, her black hair pulled back in a tight bun, and the small scar across her right cheekbone from a training accident years ago. At 42, she was young for such a command, but her tactical brilliance had made her the only logical choice. "Permission to join you, Captain." Chiwu turned to see Commander Hyun Lee, her second-in-command and oldest friend, stepping onto the deck. Hyun's uniform was identical to Chiwu's except for the rank insignia, and her expression carried the same mixture of pride and anxiety that Chiwu felt. "Of course, Commander. Come see what we've built." Hyun moved to stand beside her, both women silently watching as a team of construction drones attached the final section of the quantum sensor array to the Leviathan's bow. "The engineering team reports that hull integrity is at 100%, Captain," Hyun said, checking her datavat. "Quantum arrays are fully calibrated, and the NATO armor is responsive to all test stimulations." "And the crew?" Chiwu asked. "The final specialists arrived yesterday. Full complement of 312 personnel, as planned. They're the best Earth has to offer." Chiwu nodded, the weight of Earth's future heavy on her shoulders. After 300 years of being trapped in their solar system by the alien blockade, humanity was about to break free. The memory of the first contact remained vivid in humanity's collective consciousness, the day when massive alien ships appeared at the edge of the solar system, establishing a quarantine zone that no human vessel could cross. The aliens called themselves the Galactic Concord, and they claimed the quarantine was for humanity's protection. But as centuries passed, Earth's population grew, resources dwindled, and it became clear that containment would eventually mean extinction. "Have you reviewed the final simulation results?" Chiwu asked. Hyun's expression darkened slightly. "Yes. The Leviathan outperformed all combat parameters against the simulated Archon vessels, but the simulations are based on limited observation data. We can't be certain." "We can never be certain," Chiwu interrupted gently. "But we have to try." The door to the observation deck slid open again, and Admiral Do-Hyun Kang entered. The older man's face was lined with the stress of the past decade, the years spent convincing Earth's Council to approve and fund the Leviathan project. "The final weapon systems are online," he announced without preamble. "The quantum entanglement cannons passed all tests. They're unlike anything we've ever built, or anything the aliens have ever seen," Chiwu added. Admiral Kang moved to stand beside them, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. "The Council won't approve of this," he said quietly. "They've diverted resources from 16 colonies for this project. Mars is already talking about independence if this fails." "The Council will thank us when we're not extinct," Chiwu replied, watching as the massive vessel's lights flickered to life across its hull. "Perhaps," Kang sighed. "But they're politicians. They see only as far as the next election. They don't understand what's coming." Chiwu turned to face the Admiral directly. "Is there new intelligence?" Kang nodded grimly. "Our deep space probes detected increased activity beyond Neptune. The Archon fleet is mobilizing. We estimate they'll reach Earth in less than 2 months." Hyun inhaled sharply. The Leviathan was supposed to have 4 more months of testing. "We don't have 4 months," Kang replied. "Launch preparations begin tomorrow." The Admiral handed Chiwu a small data crystal. "These are your official orders, Captain." The Leviathan launches in 7 days. Your mission is to break through the blockade and establish contact with any potential allies beyond our system. Ju accepted the crystal, feeling its weight far more than its small size would suggest. And if we find no allies, then you return with whatever intelligence you can gather, Kang said, or you make the Arkans regret ever containing us. After the Admiral left, Ju and Hyun remained on the observation deck in silence. Below them, Earth was a blue-green jewel set against the blackness of space, home to 11 billion humans who didn't know how close they were to extinction. I should begin crew briefings, Hyun said eventually. Not yet, Ju replied. Let them have one more night of normal sleep. We'll brief them in the morning. After Hyun departed, Ju remained alone with her thoughts. The Leviathan represented humanity's greatest scientific achievements: quantum entanglement weapons that could bypass alien shields, gravity manipulation drives that could bend space itself, and adaptive nano-armor that could learn from enemy attacks. But it was also a terrible gamble. If the Leviathan failed, Earth would have no defense against the coming Archon fleet. The next morning, Ju stood before her assembled crew in the Leviathan's main briefing room. 312 faces looked back at her: engineers, tacticians, scientists, and soldiers. The best minds Earth had to offer. You all know why we're here, she began. For 3 centuries, humanity has been caged in our solar system by alien powers who claim to protect us. But we now know their true intent. They fear us. They fear what humanity might become if allowed to spread among the stars. She activated the holographic display, showing the latest sensor data of the approaching Archon fleet. In less than 2 months, that fleet will reach Earth. Their mission is not to maintain the blockade, but to end the human threat permanently. A murmur ran through the assembled crew. The Leviathan was designed to be our answer, a ship that could break through the blockade and seek allies among the stars. But now, it must be something more. It must be Earth's defender. Ju looked at each section of her crew in turn. We launch in 6 days. This mission is voluntary. Anyone who wishes to remain on Earth may do so without judgment. No one moved. Chief Engineer Taho Kim raised his hand. Captain, we still haven't completed the full testing protocol for the quantum drives. I know, Ju acknowledged. We'll complete what testing we can during the journey to the blockade line. Engineer Kim, your team will have priority access to all systems until then. After the briefing, Ju returned to the observation deck. The Leviathan had moved from its construction cradle to the launch bay, and final preparations were underway. It's really happening, said a voice behind her. Dr. Yoonji Ryu, the ship's chief science officer, joined her at the window. Yes, Ju replied. Are you ready? Yoonji smiled slightly. To possibly make first peaceful contact with alien species, I've prepared for this my entire career. And if it's not peaceful? The scientist's smile faded. Then we collected the right data to make sure humanity survives. 6 days later, the Leviathan disconnected from Earth's orbital dock. Its massive engines ignited, pushing the revolutionary battleship toward the edge of the solar system and toward humanity's uncertain future among the stars. As Ju gave the order to accelerate to full power, she watched Earth recede on the view screen. The Leviathan represented humanity's ultimate defiance against extinction. Whether it would be enough remained to be seen. The Leviathan sliced through the darkness of space at the edge of Earth's solar system. For 7 days, the massive human battleship had pushed toward the invisible line that had contained humanity for 3 centuries. Now that line was directly ahead. On the bridge, Captain Ju Park sat straight in her command chair, her eyes fixed on the main view screen. The familiar planets of humanity's home system were now tiny dots of light behind them. Ahead lay the unknown and the enemy. Approaching the blockade coordinates, Captain, announced Navigator Shunobek. His fingers moved across his console with practiced efficiency despite the tension visible in his shoulders. Ju nodded. Slow to half speed. Tactical, Status report. Tactical Officer Minja Choi didn't look up from his station as he responded. All weapons systems online. Quantum arrays charge. Nano armor at full responsiveness. Engineering reports gravity well generators are primed and ready, added Commander Hyun Lee from her position at Juwoo's right hand. The bridge fell silent. The Leviathan continued its advance toward what appeared to be empty space. Anything on sensors, Science Officer? Juwoo asked. Dr. Yoonji Ryu studied the readouts at her station. Nothing yet, Captain. But the blockade has always been invisible to our conventional sensors. Juwoo stood and moved closer to the main view screen. Activate Quantum Detection Grid. Quantum Grid active, Yoonji confirmed. The screen's display shifted, revealing what had been hidden. A line of alien vessels stretching across their path. Their purple-hued hulls seemed to absorb rather than reflect light, making them appear like holes cut from the fabric of space itself. 7 vessels detected, Minja reported, his voice tight. Configuration matches Archon patrol cruisers based on our intelligence. They're moving to intercept, Hyun added. Juwoo walked back to her chair, but remained standing. Yellow alert. Shields up, but weapons remain passive for now. The alien ships accelerated, their formation shifting to surround the Leviathan. Their sleek, curved shapes resembled predatory sea creatures from Earth's oceans. They're scanning us, Yoonji said. Very intense energy patterns. They're trying to penetrate our hull. Let them look, Juwoo replied calmly. They won't understand what they're seeing. The alien vessels continued their approach, spreading out to form a sphere around the Leviathan. Their movement was coordinated with a precision that spoke of centuries of military evolution. Captain, they're hailing us, Minja reported, his hand hovering over his console. Juwoo considered for a moment. Ignore it. Prepare the gravity wells. Minja nodded and began the activation sequence, but his console suddenly flashed. They're overriding our communications block. The alien commander's voice crackled through the bridge speakers, the translation software converting the alien language into human speech. Human vessel, power down immediately or... Now, Minja, Juwoo ordered, cutting off the alien's threat. Minji's fingers danced across his console. Gravity wells activating. Target locked on the 3 lead vessels. The Leviathan's systems hummed as the revolutionary gravity drives activated. The sound built from a low vibration to a deep, resonant tone that seemed to pass through the bodies of everyone on the bridge. On the view screen, space itself seemed to bend around the targeted Archon cruisers. The fabric of reality twisted, creating visible distortions around the alien ships. For a moment, nothing else happened. Then, in shocking silence, the 3 Archon vessels began to compress. Their hulls crumpled inward as if crushed by an invisible hand. The purple glow of their weapons flickered and died as the ships continued to fold in upon themselves. Within seconds, the once massive cruisers had imploded, reduced to dense spheres of compressed matter no larger than small asteroids. Impossible. The alien commander's voice gasped over the still-open channel. Humans lack the technological capability for gravitational weaponry. Minja allowed himself a grim smile as he checked his readings. They fought wrong, he said, though only the bridge crew could hear him. The remaining vessels are powering weapons, Hyun reported. 4 cruisers, moving to attack formation. Juwoo returned to her seat. Red alert. Bring quantum cannons online. Target their propulsion systems only. Aye, Captain. Minja responded, programming the targeting parameters. The view screen flashed as the alien vessels fired. Brilliant purple energy beams lanced toward the Leviathan from multiple directions. Brace for impact, Juwoo called. The bridge crew grabbed their stations as the first shots hit. The Leviathan shuddered, but the expected violent impact never came. Nano armor responding, reported Chief Engineer Teo over the comms. It's learning their weapon frequency and adapting. Shield efficiency already improved by 23%. Return fire, Juwoo ordered. Quantum cannons, minimal yield. The Leviathan's main weapons activated. Unlike traditional energy weapons, the quantum-entangled cannons fired no visible beam. Instead, points of intense light simply appeared inside the targeted Archon vessels, bypassing their shields entirely. Two of the alien ships immediately lost power, their engines disabled by the precisely targeted strikes. The remaining two continued their attack, their weapons' fire becoming more frantic. "They're calling for reinforcements," Yunji reported, monitoring the alien communications. "Long-range signal to the main fleet." Juwoo's expression hardened. "We can't allow that message to reach their fleet." Communications jammed their long-range transmissions. "Attempting to jam," replied Communications Officer Jinyam Kwan. After a moment, he shook his head. "They're using quantum entanglement for communications. We can't block it." Juwoo made a quick decision. "Minjae, target their communications arrays. Full power." This time, when the quantum cannons fired, the effect was devastating. The targeted sections of the alien vessels erupted in silent explosions, venting atmosphere and debris into space. "Communication arrays destroyed," Minja confirmed. The alien commander's voice came through once more, now filled with a mixture of rage and fear. "This act of aggression will not stand, humans. You have no idea what forces you've provoked." Juwoo stood again, facing the view screen. "Open a channel." When Jinyang nodded that the connection was established, Juwoo spoke clearly. "This is Captain Juwoo Park of the Earth vessel Leviathan. For 3 centuries, your people have contained humanity in our solar system, preventing our growth and development. Today, that containment ends." On the screen, the alien commander appeared for the first time. Its elongated, purple-skinned face bore multiple eyes that blinked in sequence. "Your species was quarantined for the safety of the galaxy. This ship proves we were right to do so." "We quarantine diseases," Juwoo replied evenly. "Not sentient species. You've condemned billions to slow extinction on overcrowded worlds. No more." She nodded to Minjae, who cut the transmission. "The remaining vessels are retreating," Him reported. "Let them go," Juwoo said. "They'll spread the word about what happened here." As the disabled and damaged Archon ships limped away, the bridge crew of the Leviathan exchanged glances of amazement. They had done what no humans had accomplished in 3 centuries. They had broken through the blockade and defeated the legendary Archon vessels. "Set course deeper into Archon territory," Juwoo ordered. "Maximum speed." As the Leviathan accelerated away from the battle scene, leaving Earth's solar system behind for the first time in human history, Juwoo knew that everything had changed. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy in a way that could not be ignored. The Archons had thought humans were contained, controlled, and understood. They had never been more wrong. And now, the galaxy would have to reckon with the species they had tried to cage. "Captain," Yunji called from her science station, "I'm detecting thousands of artificial structures ahead. I believe we found an inhabited star system." Juwoo nodded, her eyes on the view screen as it revealed the glittering lights of civilization spreading across an alien solar system. "The galaxy is about to learn that humanity has arrived," she said, "and we won't be contained again." 3 days had passed since the Leviathan's first encounter with the Archon blockade. The massive human battleship pushed deeper into alien territory, leaving behind the familiar confines of Earth's solar system. With each passing hour, Captain Juwoo Park and her crew ventured further into the unknown than any human had gone in 3 centuries. The Leviathan sliced through an asteroid field at the edge of a red dwarf star system. The ship's enhanced sensors mapped the spinning rocks, allowing navigator Juno to plot a course through the densest sections. This natural barrier provided some cover from their pursuers, at least temporarily. On the bridge, the crew maintained their stations with disciplined focus despite their exhaustion. No one had gotten much sleep since their confrontation with the Archon patrol. The aftermath of that battle had triggered a chain reaction throughout this sector of space, and the Leviathan had been running ever since. "Status report," Juwoo requested, her voice calm despite the circumstances. Commander Hyunlee consulted her tactical display. 6 pursuit vessels at our stern, she reported, her voice steady despite the situation. They're maintaining distance but tracking our course corrections perfectly. Tactical Officer Minja Choi looked up from his station. They're learning our maneuvering patterns, Captain. Each time we change course, they anticipate the next move more accurately. The Leviathan shuddered as it absorbed another hit, a glancing blow from a long-range weapon that had managed to slip past the ship's defensive systems. Warning lights flashed briefly, then returned to normal as the nano armor compensated. Damage report, Juwoo called out. Chief Engineer Taho's voice came through the communication system. Minor hull breach on Deck 7. Nano armor has already sealed it, but we can't take many more hits like that. The repair systems are running at capacity. On the bridge, Juwoo exchanged glances with Science Officer Yoon. The scientist's usual enthusiasm had been replaced by deep concern. Captain, I've decoded more of the Archon communications network, Yoon said, her fingers moving across her console. The Council has placed a bounty on us. 10,000 chits for the Leviathan, dead or alive. Minjae whistled. That's enough to buy a small moon in this part of the galaxy. Which means every bounty hunter and mercenary will be looking for us, Hyun added grimly. Juwoo stood and moved to the central tactical display. The holographic projection showed their position within the asteroid field and the pursuing Archon vessels. Beyond that, the map was largely empty, uncharted territory for humans. Options, she asked the bridge crew. We could try to lose them in the gravity well of the gas giant in this system, suggested Navigator Chino. The radiation belts might mask our signature. Minjae shook his head. Their quantum detection grid would still find us, and the radiation would prevent us from using our gravity wells effectively. We could stand and fight, Hyun said quietly. The gravity wells could take out half their fleet before they could react. Juwoo considered this, and alert every Archon vessel in the sector to our exact position. We need information and allies before we engage in another major confrontation. The bridge fell silent as the crew contemplated their limited options. The Leviathan had been designed to break the blockade, but extended evasion in enemy territory had not been part of the original mission parameters. Captain, a smooth, gender-neutral voice announced, echoing through the bridge. It was ATGENA, the ship's advanced AI system. I've detected a transmission from an unaligned source. They're offering shelter. Every head on the bridge turned toward the central console, where ATGENA's interface glowed with a soft blue light. Source? Juwoo asked. A small outpost on the third moon of the gas giant. ATGENA replied. The transmission was highly encrypted and directed specifically at our ship. Communications Officer Jinyum frowned. How would anyone know to contact us specifically? We've only been in this sector for 3 days. The message references Earth's Liberator, Athena explained. It appears news of our breakthrough has spread rapidly. Juwoo moved back to her command chair, put the message on screen. The main view screen flickered, showing a grainy transmission of a humanoid figure with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. The alien wore what appeared to be patched-together body armor with no recognizable insignia. Vessel from Earth, the alien spoke, its translator creating slightly stilted human speech. You have stirred the nest. Archon forces converge on your position from 12 sectors. We offer sanctuary. Coordinates follow. The screen displayed a series of navigational markers leading to a location deep within the gas giant's moon system. Juwoo weighed their options. Can we trust them? Unknown, ATGENA replied. But my analysis suggests they belong to the Tabak resistance. They oppose Archon dominance. Yoonha looked up sharply. The Tabak. I thought they were a myth. Stories we intercepted from Archon communications. The patterns match known Tabak encryption methods from our intelligence database, ATGENA confirmed. They are real, and they are aware of us. Another hit rocked the ship, this one more powerful than the last. The lights on the bridge dimmed momentarily as power was diverted to the shields. Direct hit to our port stabilizers, Engineer Teo reported. Nano armor holding, but at reduced efficiency. We can't maintain this course much longer, Captain. Juwu looked at the tactical display once more. The pursuing Archean vessels had split into two groups, attempting to flank them. More concerning were the new contacts appearing at the edge of their sensor range, reinforcements arriving from deeper in Archean space. How long before the additional Archean forces reach us? She asked. 27 minutes at current speeds, Hyun responded. Jumu made her decision. Juno, set course for the coordinates provided by the Taebek. Maximum speed. Aye, Captain. The navigator replied, programming the new course. This could be a trap, Hyun said quietly, leaning closer to Juwoo's chair. It could, Juwoo acknowledged. But if it is, we'll deal with it when we arrive. If we stay here, we'll be overwhelmed within the hour. The Leviathan changed course, its massive engines flaring as it accelerated toward the gas giant's moon system. The pursuing Archean vessels immediately adjusted their own trajectories, but the Leviathan's superior speed began to open the gap between them. As they approached the moon system, sensors detected a complex network of gravitational anomalies surrounding the third moon, artificial distortions that created a labyrinth of invisible barriers. They've created a maze, Yunha observed with professional admiration. The gravity distortions would tear apart any ship that doesn't know the safe path. The transmission included navigational markers, Athena reminded them. I can plot a course through the distortions based on these coordinates. Juwoo nodded. Do it. Jono, follow Athena's course exactly. The Leviathan slowed as it approached the gravity maze. Behind them, the Archean pursuit vessels began to fan out, clearly uncertain how to proceed. They're hesitating, Minji noted. They recognized the gravity distortion pattern. The ship entered the maze, following the precise course provided by the Taebek. Through the view screen, the crew could see the visual distortions caused by the gravitational anomalies, space itself seeming to bend and warp around invisible points. One of the Archean vessels is attempting to follow our exact course, Hyun reported, watching her tactical display. Yunha monitored the sensors. They're entering the maze and continuing on our path. Juwoo frowned. Can you send a false gravitational reading back along our wake? Make them think the safe path has changed. Analyzing possibility, Athena responded. After a moment, the AI continued. Executing gravitational echo. Projecting false path markers. On the tactical display, they watched as the following Archean vessel suddenly veered from their course. Moments later, the alien ship shuddered visibly as it hit one of the gravitational shear points. Its hull crumpled along one side before the vessel managed to reverse thrust and retreat from the maze. The remaining pursuers are holding position outside the gravity maze, Hyun reported with satisfaction. The Leviathan continued along the twisting path until they reached the dark side of the moon. There, hidden in a deep crater, was a structure unlike anything they had expected. Not a small outpost as Athena had suggested, but an extensive facility built into the moon's surface, with landing bays large enough to accommodate vessels twice the Leviathan's size. We're being hailed, Jin Young announced. On screen, Juwoo ordered. The same blue-skinned alien appeared, now with a clearer signal. Earth vessel, you have shown courage. Follow the landing beacon to Bay 7. Welcome to Sanctuary. As the Leviathan descended toward the massive hidden base, Juwoo knew they had reached a critical turning point. They had found shelter, but they had also aligned themselves with forces opposing the Archean dominance. For better or worse, humanity had just entered the complex web of galactic politics. Let's hope the enemy of our enemy is truly our friend, she said quietly as the landing bay doors closed above them, concealing the Leviathan from the stars. The Leviathan hung in orbit around Senethara, the Archean capital world. The massive human battleship should have been immediately visible against the backdrop of stars, but new technology provided by the Tayback resistance had made the impossible possible. The experimental cloaking system bent light around the ship's hull, rendering it invisible to standard detection methods. Captain Ju Park stood in the Leviathan's observation lounge, looking down at the planet below. Xenothera was beautiful in a strange alien way, its surface covered with sprawling purple-hued cities that glowed under twin moons. Countless lights moved through the atmosphere, passenger vessels and cargo ships going about their business, completely unaware of the human warship watching them. "It's hard to believe we're actually here," Commander Hyun Lee said, joining her captain at the window. "The heart of the empire that has kept humanity caged for centuries." Ju-woo nodded, her expression solemn. 2 weeks ago, I would have considered this a suicide mission. Their time with the Tayback resistance had changed everything. The alliance of species who opposed Archon rule had provided not only shelter but critical intelligence about Archon defenses and protocols. Most importantly, they had shared cloaking technology that allowed the Leviathan to move undetected through enemy space. "Captain, we have completed our detailed scan of the surface," HFY announced, the ship's AI projecting a holographic map of the capital city in the center of the room. Science Officer Yoon Ha-yoon entered the lounge, her eyes immediately drawn to the detailed map. She had spent hours analyzing the Tayback intelligence and correlating it with their scan data. "The data center is there," whispered Yoon-ha, pointing to a structure on the tactical display. "If our intelligence is correct, it contains records of the first human Archon contact." The building she indicated was a massive hexagonal structure in the administrative district of the capital. Unlike the ornate, flowing architecture that characterized most Archon buildings, this one was severe and functional, surrounded by multiple security perimeters. "What's our window?" Ju asked. "The planetary defense grid cycles every 6 hours," Hyun explained. "There's a 3-minute gap in coverage during the transition. If we send the team down during that window, they should be able to reach the surface undetected." Ju studied the map, considering their options. This mission had not been part of their original orders. The Leviathan was supposed to break the blockade, gather intelligence, and return to Earth. But what they had learned from the Tayback had changed everything. The truth about humanity's containment might be hidden in that data center, and Ju couldn't leave without it. "The risk is significant," HFY noted. "If the team is detected, the Archons will know we've penetrated to their homeworld. And if the planetary defense systems detect the Leviathan, we won't survive long enough for a rescue operation," added Hyun. Ju turned to Tactical Officer Minja Choi, who had been silently reviewing security patterns on a datapad. "Your assessment." Minja looked up, his expression serious but determined. "We can do this, Captain. The Tayback provided us with Archon security codes and protocols. Combined with their cloaking technology for our shuttle, we have a real chance." Ju made her decision. "Prepare the infiltration team. You'll lead them, Minja." "Captain," Yoon-ha interrupted, "I should go too. The data systems will be in Archon language and encryption. I study their systems more than anyone else on board." Ju hesitated. Sending her tactical officer was risk enough. Adding her chief science officer made the mission even more dangerous. But Yoon-ha was right. Without her expertise, the team might not be able to identify the correct data. "Very well," she agreed reluctantly. "But you follow Minji's orders without question. This is a military operation." 4 hours later, a small shuttle detached from the Leviathan's underside. The specialized craft, enhanced with Tayback cloaking technology, descended toward the Archon capital during the brief window in the defense grid's coverage. Aboard were Minja, Yoon-ha, and 4 security specialists equipped with weapons and tools designed to bypass Archon security systems. On the Leviathan's bridge, Ju and Hyun monitored the mission's progress. Athena maintained a secure communications link with the team, while simultaneously monitoring Archon security channels for any sign of detection. "They'd reached the surface," Hyun reported, watching the tracker signals. Proceeding to the target building, the infiltration team moved through the darkened streets of the Archon capital. Their specialized suits, another gift from the Tabek, mimicked the appearance of Archon officials, while dampening fields masked their human biosignatures. To any casual observer or security scan, they would register as authorized Archon personnel. Security checkpoint ahead. Minji's voice came through the comm, implementing access protocol. The team approached the first security barrier surrounding the data center. Minji activated the forged credentials provided by the Tabek. For a tense moment, the security field hummed as it scanned their disguised forms. Then the barrier shimmered and created an opening. "We're through the first checkpoint," Minji reported. 2 more to go. On the bridge, Ju allowed herself a small breath of relief, but the most difficult part of the mission still lay ahead. The team progressed through the remaining security barriers using similar techniques. Inside the data center itself, they moved silently through corridors filled with storage systems. The facility was largely automated, with few Archon personnel present during the night cycle. "We've reached the central archive," Yunhe whispered over the comm. "Beginning data search." She connected a Tabak device to the Archon terminal, bypassing the need for direct interaction with the alien interface. The device displayed translated information as it searched through the vast database. "I'm looking for records related to humanity and Earth," she explained as her fingers moved across the device, specifically the first contact period 3 centuries ago. Minutes passed as the device sifted through countless files. On the Leviathan, Ju watched the mission timer with growing concern. They had allocated 45 minutes for the entire operation, and almost 30 had already elapsed. "Yunhe, time is becoming critical," she warned. "I found something," Yunhe replied. "Downloading data cores now." The device extracted the relevant information, copying it to secure storage units. As the download neared completion, a soft alarm sounded on Minji's equipment. "Security patrol approaching," he warned. "We need to move." Yunhe disconnected the device as soon as the download finished. "Got it. Let's go." The team retreated through the facility, carefully avoiding the approaching security patrol. They retraced their steps through the checkpoints, each time holding their breath as the barriers scanned their disguises. Finally, they'd reached the extraction point where their shuttle waited, still cloaked and undetected. Within minutes, they were airborne, racing toward the brief window when they could return to the Leviathan without triggering the planetary defense grid. "Shuttle approaching," HFY announced on the bridge. "They will reach us in 3 minutes, 20 seconds. Any sign of pursuit?" Ju asked. "Negative," the AI replied. "Archon security channels show no alerts." When the shuttle safely docked with the Leviathan, Ju felt tension she hadn't realized she was holding release from her shoulders. The infiltration team had succeeded against incredible odds. In the ship's secure briefing room, Yunhe connected the stolen data cores to their systems. HFY began translating and organizing the massive amount of information, displaying key findings on the main screen. Hours later, as the team returned with the stolen data cores, Juhu's worst fears were confirmed. The Archons hadn't isolated humanity out of fear of contamination. They'd contained them because human adaptability and creativity terrified them. "They'd been experimenting on us," Yunhe said, her voice breaking. "For centuries." The data painted a disturbing picture. The Archons had monitored Earth long before making contact. They had observed humanity's rapid technological advancement with growing alarm. When humans began developing space travel, the Archons implemented what they called the containment protocol. But it wasn't just containment. The data revealed that the Archons had been systematically abducting humans from Earth for scientific study. They were fascinated by human adaptability, the ability to survive in diverse environments, and to create innovative solutions to problems. According to these records, Yunhe continued, her face pale. They'd been taking humans for genetic research. They're trying to understand what makes us different from other species they've encountered. Even more disturbing were the experimentation logs. Thousands of humans had been subjected to tests designed to measure their adaptability under stress. The Archons were particularly interested in human creativity, the ability to imagine possibilities beyond immediate experience. "Look at this," Minja said, pointing to a section of the display. They'd been manipulating Earth's development, deliberately suppressing certain technologies while encouraging others. The data showed that the Archons had agents on Earth, disguised to look human. These infiltrators had influenced human governments and scientific institutions, guiding Earth's development along paths that the Archons could control and understand. "There's more," Ate announced, highlighting another section of data. "I found records of an earlier human expedition, a ship called the Pathfinder that left Earth 350 years ago." "That's impossible," Hyun said. "The blockade has been in place for 3 centuries. No human ship has broken through before the Leviathan." According to these records, the Pathfinder was captured by the Archons, HFY continued. Its crew was studied extensively before the containment protocol was implemented. "So humanity reached the stars before we were caged," Ju said quietly. "And the Archons erased that knowledge from our history." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Everything humanity had believed about their place in the galaxy was based on Archon deception. The containment wasn't protection, it was imprisonment. "We need to get this information back to Earth," Ju said finally. "But first, we need to find out what happened to the Pathfinder crew." "Captain," HFY interrupted, "I've detected increased activity in the Archon defense grid. They may have discovered the data breach." "Prepare to break orbit," Ju ordered. "We've learned what we came for. Now we need to find allies who can help us free Earth once and for all." As the Leviathan slipped away from the Archon homeworld, still hidden beneath its cloak, Ju knew that humanity's understanding of its place in the galaxy had changed forever. They weren't simply an isolated species, they were prisoners who frightened their jailers. And now, they had the truth. The Leviathan emerged from hyperspace in a flash of brilliant blue light. The massive human battleship appeared suddenly above Nexus Prime, the neutral world where the Galactic Council conducted its business. Dozens of ships from various species scattered in panic at the unexpected arrival of the now legendary human vessel. For 2 months, the Leviathan had evaded the most determined hunting parties in the galaxy. Stories of its power had spread across thousands of worlds. Some called it a monster, others a liberator. To the Archons, it represented their worst fears come to life. Humanity unbound. Now, Captain Ju Park had brought her ship to the very center of galactic politics. The Leviathan's journey had led her from Earth to the stars, through battles and revelations, to this moment that would change history. On the bridge, the crew worked with practiced efficiency despite their exhaustion. They had survived impossible odds to reach this point. Each person aboard had been transformed by what they had witnessed. The truth about humanity's imprisonment, the allies they had found among the stars, and the discovery of the lost human expedition aboard the ancient ship Pathfinder. "Tactical status," Ju requested, standing calmly in the center of the bridge. 17 Archon vessels have taken up defensive positions around the council chamber, Tactical Officer Minju reported. Their weapons are powered and targeting systems active. Council security forces are on high alert, added Commander Hyun. They've activated the planetary defense grid. Chu-Mu nodded. She had expected nothing less. And our allies. The Taebaek fleet is standing by at the arranged coordinates, Communications Officer Jin-young confirmed. They'll arrive within minutes of our signal. In the weeks since discovering the truth about the Archons, the Leviathan had formed alliances with various groups who opposed Archon dominance. The Taebaek resistance had been first, but others had joined. The Solari Confederation, the free worlds of the Outer Rim, and even some Archon colonies seeking independence. Together, they had planned this moment carefully. "We're receiving multiple hails from Council security," Jin-young reported. "They're demanding our immediate surrender." On the main view screen, the Council chamber was visible on the planet's surface. an enormous dome of shimmering crystal where representatives from hundreds of species debated galactic policy. The Archons had controlled the Council for millennia, using it to maintain their dominance while creating the illusion of democracy. Science Officer Yunhe looked up from her station. The Council is in full session. Representatives from all major powers are present. Perfect timing, Ju said. She turned to face the view screen and straightened her uniform. Open a channel to all frequencies. The communications officer nodded, his fingers moving across his console. Channel open, Captain. You're broadcasting to the entire Nexus system. Ju took a deep breath. The next few minutes would determine the fate of not just humanity, but countless species across the galaxy. This is Captain Ju Park of the Earth vessel Leviathan, she began, her voice broadcasting to every corner of the Council world. We come not for vengeance, but for truth. On the planet below, the Council chamber erupted into chaos as her voice filled the hall. Representatives from hundreds of species turned to the massive displays that showed the Leviathan in orbit above them. Archean security forces moved to protect their leaders, weapons ready. For 3 centuries, Ju continued, the people of Earth have been imprisoned in their home system by Archean decree. We were told this was for our protection and the safety of the galaxy. Today, we reveal the truth. With a nod to Yunhe, Ju authorized the transmission of the evidence they had gathered. The records from the Archean data center showing centuries of experimentation on abducted humans, the deliberate suppression of Earth's development, and the cover-up of previous human space exploration. The Archean Empire has maintained power not through wisdom or justice, but through deception and fear, Ju said. They have done this not only to humanity but to many species represented in your council. On the bridge, Athena's voice came through the command console. Captain, Archean vessels are moving to attack positions. Their weapons are powered. Ju nodded. This was the moment of greatest risk. Prepare final protocol. All systems ready. With a gesture, she activated the ship's final protocol. The culmination of Earth's most advanced technology combined with what they had learned from their new allies. Across the planet, weapons systems went dormant as a specialized energy wave spread from the Leviathan. The technology neutralized power sources for offensive weapons without harming other systems. In the Council chamber, Archean security forces found their weapons suddenly useless. The defending fleet in orbit discovered the same, their massive battleships rendered temporarily harmless. We have developed the means to end warfare without destruction, Ju explained. This technology does not harm life or disable critical systems, only weapons. The Council chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. The Archeans' military supremacy, the foundation of their power for millennia, had been neutralized in moments. Humanity will no longer accept imprisonment, she continued. But neither do we seek domination. Today marks the beginning of a new galactic order, one where all species stand as equals. Ju signaled to Jinyang, who transmitted another set of coordinates to the Council systems. We have discovered evidence that the Archeans have similarly suppressed other species who showed rapid technological development or independent thinking. Those records are now available to all Council members. On the view screen, the Council chamber was in uproar. Representatives from dozens of worlds crowded around displays, seeing for the first time evidence of Archean manipulation of their own civilizations. The Archean delegates were surrounded, facing the anger of species who had been loyal allies just moments before. The Tabek fleet has arrived, Minju reported. On the tactical display, dozens of ships appeared at the edge of the system, vessels representing all the allies who had joined their cause. Captain, Athena announced, I'm detecting a transmission from the Council chamber. The Premier Counselor wishes to speak with you. On screen, Ju ordered. The view screen changed to show an elderly Solari, a species known for their wisdom and diplomatic skill. Valerian Toll had been Premier Counselor for decades, respected even by those who questioned his close ties to the Archeans. Captain Park, he said, his voice grave. Your evidence is disturbing. The Council requests your presence for direct testimony. I understand your concern for security, Premier Counselor, Ju replied. But after centuries of arcane deception, you'll understand if I'm cautious. The weapon neutralization field proves your sincerity, Valerian said. You could have attacked, but you chose to disable rather than destroy. The Council will guarantee your safety, and I personally pledge mine as well. Ju considered for a moment, then nodded. I will attend, but the Leviathan remains in orbit, and our allies will ensure no treachery occurs. 6 hours later, Ju stood in the center of the Galactic Council chamber. Behind her were representatives from the Tabak Resistance and other allied groups. Facing her were the assembled delegates of hundreds of worlds, including the Archon High Command who had been forced to attend. The evidence is conclusive, announced Premier Counselor Valerian after reviewing the complete data. The Archon Empire has systematically manipulated Council policy and suppressed multiple species, including humanity, in violation of our most sacred principles. The vote that followed was unprecedented. For the first time in recorded history, the Archon representatives were outvoted on a major policy decision. The Council formally recognized humanity's right to free movement throughout the galaxy and established a commission to investigate other Archon abuses. As Ju returned to the Leviathan, she carried with her formal recognition of Earth as an independent world with full Council membership. More importantly, she carried an agreement for the immediate removal of the blockade around Earth's solar system. 3 weeks later, the Leviathan led a mixed fleet of alien vessels into Earth's solar system. As they approached the blockade line, the Archon ships that had contained humanity for centuries received new orders from their command. One by one, they moved aside, creating a clear path to Earth. On Earth, humans looked up at their skies and saw alien ships descending in peace for the first time in history. The Leviathan, once built for war, now led a diplomatic mission representing dozens of species eager to establish relations with humanity. In her quarters aboard the Leviathan, Ju looked out at Earth growing larger in her viewport. She thought about the journey that had brought them here, the battles fought, the truths discovered, and the alliances formed. What had begun as a desperate mission to break a blockade had transformed into something much more significant, the beginning of humanity's true place among the stars. Captain, Athena's voice interrupted her thoughts. The Council representatives are ready to begin descent to Earth. The Secretary General has requested that you lead the delegation. Ju smiled. Tell them I'll be right there. As she prepared to escort the first official alien delegation to Earth, Ju knew that the Leviathan's journey was far from over. Humanity had much to learn about the galaxy, and the galaxy had much to learn about humanity. But for the first time in centuries, that exchange would happen as equals, not as prisoners. The galaxy had indeed been unprepared for humanity's ultimate battleship, not because of its weapons, but because of what it represented: the unbreakable human spirit and the dawn of a new galactic age.